At this time, I'll call the Dixon County Commission meeting to order for December 26th, 2024. Would you please remove your hats if needed and stand and join us in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance
to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you can see, there'll just be two of us today, but 2 out of 3 does constitute a quorum where we can go ahead and proceed with our meeting. And also, I'll go ahead and mention, or Janelle, do you want to explain the situation with our video, or if
We don't have video today. We have sound. When I set it up earlier this morning, before 10, it was working. I'm not sure what's going on with it right now. IT will have to come up here and take a look at it after the meeting's completed.
Okay. So we apologize for that if that causes inconvenience, but we should have the audio, and then the audio should come up later so people can review that.
Mm-hmm.
The first item we have is the approval of the agenda, and I don't believe there's any additions or deletions. So I will move that we approve the agenda as printed.
I'll second it.
We have the motion, we have the second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Commission comments. Ron?
Oh, do we want the consent agenda first?
Oh, yes. I was getting ahead. So the consent agenda includes the minutes of the December 19th meeting, also expenditures of $361,175.94, a security wire of $4,560, hand checks of $696.17, abatements of $1,495.68, and added tax $897.50.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now commission comments. Ron?
Yes. I had the opportunity to travel throughout the county yesterday and the day before, driving our roads and highways, and then I moved on up to the east and the west, the other counties. And I have to say, I'm pretty darn proud of the way our roadways and highways are in Dickinson County. And I made a comment this morning to the sheriff about the safety. I think we come through a good year of fatalities in this county. They have protected us and made sure our roadways are secure. Our road department's working hard to make sure that's happening. And then we move off to our staff in the county courthouse. And, you know, I've had the privilege of working with the Department of Defense, and I had the privilege of working with the Kansas 4-H Foundation and with producers throughout our area, especially in the southern area. But I find it to be fascinating and rewarding to serve and work with these folks here in Dickinson County. A bunch of good people, and I really appreciate that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ron. We do trust everybody had their Christmas did go well, and we've got a new year ahead of us. And so it's really a time where a lot of times families can get together and such. One thing that I was going to mention as far as on my comment, I had someone ask for a little bit of an explanation of some of the county tax dollars and such. And I ran across this pamphlet. I think maybe Sheila Biggs had given it to me years ago. And I think we've done some similar things since. But I thought I'd go ahead and, Janelle, let you have this. And I think it would be good to have something like this in this form available for distribution. And it told about the different departments as far as the sheriff's department, emergency communications, road and bridge. So this kind of ties in with your comments, Ron. The emergency medical services, it has information as far as what the budget was, how many employees we have, Department of the Aging, the county attorney, district court. It had the number of cases. So I see our county attorney back there. It had the number of court cases that actually took place. But anyway, I'll let you have that. You can kind of ignore it. I wrote a few notes on it that I think it'd be kind of helpful to have something like that. And maybe there's some additional information that would be available. And that was something that was done. I noticed it was like as of the first of the year. So that would be something pretty handy to have.
Lynn, we do have a did you know flyer that we have and we last year. So it is available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think, but it's really something pretty handy. And I think we're kind of followed that format. And I'm not sure how many of those got printed before. But they really got distributed. So, and I have seen some of that over the last few years too. So,
Janelle, are you talking about this one here?
Yes. No.
Yeah, and that one was a little bit
You guys had
more.
a chance to pick it up. It's a pretty good deal on information about the county.
Right.
I think that's a little more comprehensive.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
regardless. Okay. That's all I have for comments. We do not have any petitions or proclamations. This would be opportunity now for public comments, and people online could signal if they would want to make a comment. And then also we will have comments from the public on items that are not on the agenda. And so Janelle, would you go ahead and read the rules? And then are you going to keep track of, you'll keep track of the 3 minutes and give them a 10 or 15 second
Right.
tip off that they're nearing the end of their time limit?
Per the Open Meetings Act, KSA 75-4317 and 4318A, as the elected board, the county commission is not allowed to meet or make any decisions without posting the meeting. They are only allowed to act on items on the agenda which they set. During the regular meeting, the county commission may allow for public comments on items not listed on the approved agenda. If you wish to provide comments, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address. If you are online, raise your hand and we will unmute you. State your name and address, please. Each person may speak for 3 minutes. The allotted time will start after the speaker has given his or her name and address. Public comments shall be addressed to the county commission only and not to the speaker or the audience. Only the county commission will be permitted to ask the speaker questions. The public comment period is not a back and forth discussion with the county commission. You should make your views and input known to them, but it is not a time to ask them questions. You should not expect them to respond to your comments. Comments may express support or agreement with the previous speakers, but in the interest of time, please do not repeat the same information. You may state something to the effect of your name and address, and I agree with the previous speaker. It is important to maintain a respectful, non-threatening atmosphere for anyone who would like to speak. Please do not engage in such actions as cheering, booing, clapping, insults, threats, etc.
Okay, so anyone that would want to make a comment, if you'd please step up to the podium and give your name and address, and we'd like to hear from you.
Diane Miller, 1601 Jayhawk Street, Abilene. I would like to address the ability of citizens to address the county commission, and having served on a governing body, it's standard practice to have public comments on items not on the agenda as an agenda item, which you do. However, sometimes we are not being allowed to speak on agenda items, and I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong. It was wrong on the wind farm, and I think it was wrong a couple of meetings ago. Your rules, having those read every week, they're posted on your website. The county or the public can read them there. It's rather demeaning to have to read those every week. The 3 of you commissioners have served a long time and are familiar with procedures. Like, I've never attended a public meeting where commissioners have been interrupted by an employee. The county hierarchy is a bit unusual with elected officials thrown in the mix. However, you basically have one employee and you're allowing that employee to set their own salary by inclusion on a schedule for all county elected and non-elected officials. That's unethical and needs to be changed. No other county employee has a contract or the additional benefits that your administrator has. I would also question the frequency of executive sessions that has increased. Commissioner Peterson has self-reported 1 coma violation, and we wonder how many more times maybe that has happened. Speaking to individual commissioners about an item not privy to executive session is also not allowed, and that's a serial meeting. your administrator alluded to this type of violation in the December 16th email to commissioners. Violations are no small matter. It's a breach of public trust. Additionally, not posting information for the public is being used as a way to hide what the county is really doing. Your posted agenda should include the administrator's report to commissioners and all backup detail for agenda items. All we get is the cover page, and today that wasn't even available on the web. Saline County and the city of Abilene are examples of this type of information provided to the public. Other items also listed as available in the document center on your website are just not there. Budgets, resolutions, correspondence, those are all grayed out. The link to email the commissioners isn't working. When I checked this morning, the latest meeting minutes posted was from November 21st. Also, reducing the mill levy doesn't equal to reducing taxes. Dickinson County has raised property taxes 10.7% over the last 4 years, or an average of 2.7% annually. They've gone up every year, yet you can hide behind the statement, we've lowered the mill levy. That doesn't indicate how much is being levied. Sales tax revenue has also increased from 1.599 million in 2022 to 1.893 million in 2023. Yet you budget for 1.1 million every year. So that pushes up the need for property tax increases. Elderly are being taxed out of their homes with no restraint at the local level. That's why we keep going to state representatives asking for property tax relief. Commissioner Chamberlain read emails the other day, two meetings ago, I think, and every one of them asked for property tax relief. If there is a lid enacted at the state level, you can't blame anyone higher up. And the latest Kansas Association of Counties, of which you are a member, is considering an county income tax initiative. One last thing, policy decisions are guides for employees. Your hands are not tied. Thank you.
Morning, Debbie Ponton, 406 Glen, Manchester. I just want to speak on the pay plan. It seems to me that there are some that excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is an item that is under unfinished business.
Okay, so what we would do after we discuss that item on the agenda, I would allow for public comment on that item if they have something to add after we've discussed that.
Okay, thank you.
And that's actually, in my opinion, that's the place for that, because if it's not on the agenda, when else will you have a chance to talk about it?
So Lynn, last week, the three of you said that it's not going to be allowed for items that are on the agenda.
I disagreed with that. And actually, as you read the policy, my interpretation, it says, now is the time to speak for any item that is not on the agenda. So then that begs the question, when it's on the agenda, when do you speak? And for years, we've still taken comment, other than typically the staff or commission will make their comments first, because maybe we'll have something that answers the question before you have your question. But for today, that's the way I'll proceed.
Item 4.
So are there others that have something they would, since the compensation plan is on the agenda, is there anyone that wants to speak on some other item that is not on our agenda? Did anyone have copies of the agenda?
Yes.
So we need to have those. I think back when Laverne, when you and I were on there, it was out there outside the door. There was a little bulletin board that had that. So you can at least take a look at it.
But excuse me, Mr. President, but the agenda is on the internet. I get a review before I come here to the meeting. So it's posted on the internet.
Yes, oh, yes, it is. It is. But I think it's helpful sometimes when people, unless they printed it off at home or such. But yes, that's a good point. It is on the internet.
And Barb Barrett would like to make a comment on the items not on the agenda.
Yes. So, Barb, if you'd go ahead and give your name and address. Are you unmuted and such?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good morning. Thank you. Barb Barrett, 1608 900 Avenue in Hope. This morning, I have a couple of comments about mistakes and accountability. As we close out, a number of mistakes and errors made by Dickinson County have come to light. Trust in this board by your citizen taxpayers has been shaken by the significance and resulting consequences of these mistakes that were made. Now, I realize that mistakes happen and no one's perfect. But it's not how the mistake was made, but rather how the mistake is corrected that defines us. I encourage this board to avoid taking the seemingly easy way out by trying to justify or hide the mistake. Instead, this board can restore trust by being accountable and maintaining transparency in that process. Correct the mistakes that were made in 2024, learn from them, and then put in safeguards to ensure that those mistakes are not made again. Commissioners, your actions will define Dickinson County in 2025. What steps will you take to correct these mistakes that were made and demonstrate accountability? Appreciate your time this morning. Have a good new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others online or here that have something specific they'd want to bring up on something not on the? Okay, so I'll close the public comment at this time and move on to the next agenda item. That would be our report from the county officers, our county administrator, Janelle, if you'll give us your report, please.
There's an open position on the Planning and Zoning Board. We are accepting applications. We have one that we have received. They're on the website, or you can contact Tim. The county treasurer's office will be closed to the public on December 31st at noon to close the year. And planning offices will be closed on January 1st in observance of New Year's Day. And that's all I have.
Okay. And you had mentioned Doug will not be here today, so he didn't have anything to pass on to you necessarily as.
Other than the indigent defense contracts.
Okay. And that'll come a little bit later in the agenda.
Correct.
Okay. So on notices and communications, we received this from the Kansas Historical Society. It is to inform us there's a property on 178 Hawk Road that is being considered by the Kansas Historical Site Board for review. And let's see, a minute ago I saw that. It is known as the Prey Farmstead. And so anyone from the public that wants to speak for or against a nomination, the board will meet, and you can also go to a link it has. And so I know people go through a lot of preparation to have something considered on the historical site. And so that's, that meeting is going to be Saturday, February 1st, 2025. Would take place there in Topeka. We also had a Christmas card from TCT. And I think Craig covered those the other week. Also, it's been alluded to, but we did get official notification from the state of Kansas, from the Office of the Attorney General. And this is in regards to a coma complaint. And this was something that I did self-report. I did not, the other commissioners were not aware of this until after the fact. I had a little bit of difficulty online getting that to submit, and I had not heard back from them. So I called them 3 or 4 days later, and they did not have a record that it had gone through. And they said usually it's a 2-day turnaround, but it could be an IT issue. And so I went ahead and resubmitted. And then I also had heard that we haven't been notified, but there maybe was another complaint from some individual on that. So there's a process to go through. The Attorney General's office does not represent a commission or an individual. They do their investigation based on open meetings on behalf of the state of Kansas. And sometimes they refer to that as their sunshine law. And, you know, the implication is obvious. They want meetings to be open when they're supposed to be open. Okay. Ron, did you get any other notices and communications?
I did not.
I did receive a couple of phone calls where people had raised concerns in regards to the pay plan. And so we do not have any resolutions to consider. Under the old business or unfinished business was that of a compensation plan. And that item had been tabled previously, awaiting to hear something from the Attorney General's office. And then at a meeting after that, there was a motion to untable it without a second. And so it still is considered a table item. But since it is on the agenda, the compensation plan, I think we should go ahead and at least there may be some discussions. Now, Janelle, you had mentioned you might want to share this information. The Arnold Group, who did the study, plans to have representatives here
On January 2nd, yes.
January 2nd.
If you untable the motion and place it on the agenda for January 2nd, they would be available to come in and answer questions.
Okay. Would they be able to come in and answer questions anyway? I mean, I would.
On an item not on the agenda?
If we wanted to hear from them in a work study session, for example, if there's any, I think there was some question on the methodology that was used, and they might have some insights to be able to answer questions.
I can invite them to come at 9:30 next week.
Mhm. So a couple of things I wanted to clear up. And as Janelle mentioned, we can consider a motion on this. I know in our public comments, Diane had brought up about the mill levy. And I think I had quoted that, and we had in a memo that the mill levy has been reduced for the past 4 years. But I also since then ran across a chart that was provided to us on the mill levy history for the last 10 years. And actually it shows 2022 as an increased mill levy. And then it does show on 2023, 2024, and the 2025. So kind of for clarification, that's making reference to the 3 years instead of 4. The other thing I was going to bring up, because I am in support of our employees. Ron had mentioned how much we value them and the importance that they have to the county and the great job they do. I am in favor of a pay raise of some sort for our employees, but the recommendation that we had, I felt was over the top. And when you talk about the employees, they're, from my understanding of it, and maybe they can give clarification, or Janelle, if you want to, now you could mention this. there's some employees that would have just no pay raise whatsoever or a very meager pay raise. And so I think that was kind of the concern that I had, that it didn't seem very fair and equitable that some would get hardly any raise and others might get more. The other thing, and I was very uncomfortable doing this when I notified the Attorney General, but I'm going to just mention this. We had an executive session, and this is from the website where they refer to the sunshine laws or the Kansas open meeting laws. And it says discussions of consolidation of departments or overall salary structure are not proper topics for executive session. And so that implies that in an open meeting, this is the time that we need to discuss some of those things. And if I interpreted it wrong, I interpreted it wrong, and I apologize. But I'm not going to live with the fact that I kind of thought, well, I'm going to ignore it and kind of go with what's easy. I think it's important enough. And it's not very often that the AG office gets notified of a violation as far as counties. I think it happened, I looked, and it happened 6 times last year across the whole state. And so, we've had other counties close by or cities close by that have had that to deal with. So that's a little bit the concern I have. The other part, we have a letter here that says the Arnold Group, the proposed plan based on conversations with the county commission. You requested we find areas to lower the amount. And we have done that by $231,000. And so can you share, Janelle, what was the methodology used to reduce that by $231,000? But it seemed like some were reduced and others weren't.
So if you recall, the employment journey is a big piece of this, as well as market adjustments. And the 231,000 came from the number of employees that are no longer employed here that were in that original spreadsheet that you shared that should not have been in the plan because they're not here any longer. And some of them could have been long-term employees. And then their employment journey also, like I said, is a factor in this consideration. So that's where the savings came from.
Or the reduction. Okay. So I guess the other issue, and I keep hearing this, is it true that there are some that could receive a 10 or 15 or 20 or 1,000 or more raise off of this plan?
Based on the market adjustment and their employment journey and the credit that they receive for their years of service here.
So I guess that's where the rub is, that I get feedback from people, but also what greatly has concerned me.
Mm-hmm.
If someone gets a $20,000 raise and we have an entry-level employee, their raise, that annual raise is going to be more than what that employee entry-level makes in the first quarter of the year. I mean, it just, so anyway, the equity part, and people are concerned about property taxes. And so I think I would like to see, this is me, and maybe Ron has a different idea on it, but I would like to see a proposal come back where it does not have any raises of that proportion. If someone's getting if they're earning $100,000 a year now, and they get a $5,000 raise, that'd be 5%. And so that's a huge amount. So then when I read that someone's going to get 10% or 10,000 or 15 or 20,000, I think that's a little bit over the top. So
the other part of this, as the tag explained, when you signed the agreement to do the compensation study was to address compression in the pay plan, because in the past few years, you've done a 7 to 3% increase where the entry level received 7% up to so many grades, and then the higher levels received 3%. So now you have compression in the pay plan. That needs to be addressed as well. And the 8% raises that you have done in the past few years have not addressed that.
Well, and I was comfortable with the compression part and I guess trying to put that in layman's terms. Sometimes at some of the entry levels, it was hard to find someone, and it was very, very competitive, because you'll see signs out there where fast food places and other places, they're giving $15 an hour and $17 an hour and so on. So how do you get that entry level where it's attractive to inquire and work for the county? Although I think sometimes the county has better benefits and more opportunity on a long-term basis for to work into higher levels.
The compression also means that if you don't move the higher wage earners up, somebody starting in those lower wages will be making the same amount as somebody that has been here for 10, 15 years.
Okay. And that's a concern. So there's that middle part, but still I don't see the connect where someone can get a $10, $15 or $20,000 raise. So that, anyway, that's where it's the rubber meets the road as far as I'm concerned, and that's the part that needs to be addressed. Ron, I've kind of, did you have some thoughts on this? Or?
Well, just bluntly putting it, Lynn, I just disagree with you. When I first started here, I looked at seeing what everybody was making, and I was appalled that we could hire people to do the jobs they're doing and do them for the money we're paying them. And so for so close to 6 years, we've been looking at the pay plan thing and thinking, well, let's do a little bit of here, a little bit there. And frankly, they're not even keeping up with inflation. I have 2 daughters that are employed, and my 2 daughters make more than the average person in the county makes. And they're just out of college. How do I explain that to them? Don't go work for the counties, girls. You can't afford it. We need quality people and good people working for the counties. Now let's take another look at this. You look at the gross amount these folks are making, and you take 30% right off the top of what they take home, because it is 30% of their check that they don't ever get. That's state, federal, and Social Security withholdings, amongst other taxes. Those that are drawing Social Security today, I pray when I get ready to draw Social Security, there's going to be a fund there and money. Young folks put money into that fund for Social Security, because it's hurting now and it needs money pumped back in it. If the young folks aren't making enough money, put enough into Social Security, we're affecting our elderly also, and they're being affected now. So it's not just a scope of what the young people are making, it's what we can do to help our elderly people too. We all know what the cost of things are like. We have to adjust fire to that. We can't work on wages we did in the 1970s. And believe me, I've worked on those wages, believe me, and it's hard to do. I appreciate very much what the folks do here. I don't feel they're absolutely not overcompensated. In fact, I'm going to pick on somebody. I'll pick on our administrator. I'd like to see us go find an administrator for the wages she's working for today. And I'm sorry. I've looked at what the other administrators are making. My daughters make more than you, Janelle. I'm sorry. And to sit there and say we were overpay you or giving you too much is totally wrong. I work for the Department of Defense just for doing small things within a month. I got a $5,000 bonus. That helps a lot in the economy today. Other workers on our force here, you don't hear anything from them. They've not complained. I've been here 6 years. I have not once heard an employee complain. They show up to work every time they do their job, and I'm very proud. Find good, competent people today. Just find them. They're hard to do. We're all begging for people to labor and help us. On my shift, as General Hardy, who told me once, we're to look after our people, and I'm looking after our people as a commissioner. And I pray that those who elect us have enough faith that their commissioners can make decisions, the right decisions to keep this county moving forward. If they not, then the public ought to come in and run the county. They don't need commissioners here. Every time something comes up, if a commissioner that does not have the courage, the education to make good decisions for its county, it needs to be replaced. And the county and citizens come up and run the county. Because believe me, it's not what you think. The information that we're shared with and we have is how we draw our conclusions of what we do. And I'm very proud of that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ron. Any additional comments from staff?
Are you going to untable the motion?
Mr. President,
Or Chairman, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to untable the compensation plan.
Since I'm not in agreement with that at this time, it would die from a lack of a second. But I also mentioned earlier that if the public, they were not allowed to speak before on the compensation plan because it was on the agenda, but we still need to hear from the public. So if there's anyone online that would want to make a comment, or I know Debbie, you had started your comments, so if you'd like to come forward, please.
Good morning. Debbie Ponton, 406 Glen, Manchester. Gentlemen, I appreciate your comments. They're both very passionate. I'm here to share my comments. Inflation has hit us all, and it's hit us all hard. And we've lived under a presidential administration that's made a lot of choices. And I'm calling on this commission, this county commission, to also look at the choices that you are making in this. It's very reasonable to expect a cost of living increase and some merit increases. That's very reasonable. However, to compete at the level that some other counties are, I don't know that that would be as reasonable to expect. We have our president-elect is looking at the Department of Government Efficiency. Our state legislators are looking at a committee of government efficiency. We too need to have our county level government efficiency going. Taxing and spending is not the way. We work hard for what we have, and people are suffering at every level. And while it's incredibly honorable to want to give as much money as you do to raises, it's incredibly dishonorable to the citizens of this county that are working hard and have seen their monies go down and down and down because of the inflation, because of tax and spending. So I encourage you to make healthy decisions for everyone, not just county employees. And I do want to thank county employees for all that you do. Your work is noticed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Greg Wilson, 2201 South Washington Avenue. And I'm here as a property owner. The county budget's doubled from 17 million to 34 million in 10 years. Took 140 years to get to 17 million. $7 million increase from 2023 alone. Our property taxes have done the same thing. They've doubled in 10 years. Not from an increase in levy, but the doubling of assessed values. Same thing on farm ground. The county population has decreased, so you can't compare us to Saline, Riley, Geary counties. And we don't need another $15,000 stay to tell us that. We should have paid for instance, we should have paid for those radios. The 1.2 million per year from the gas pipeline taxes that came in 3 years ago, instead of raising the sales tax to pay for them. Now, I have a few issues with the county administrator, the way she talked to the commissioners and the public last week. She used a parliamentary procedure to keep us from asking questions about a budget that she proposed. It increases the county payroll $1.2 million, including a 24% increase in her salary. I find it incomprehensible that people are having to make choices between food or medicine, and you want an outrageous raise. Another problem I have is that she doesn't live in Dickinson County, so it won't affect her. What happens if she gets this budget increase? She has at least 2 Kansas Open Meeting Act violations, and I hear more coming. Filed with the state, which is another way of suppressing our First Amendment rights. At this time, I would ask that she resign, or if she doesn't, I would ask the commissioners to replace her with someone more responsible with our tax dollar. We just elected an administration with a mandate to balance and lower government spending on a national level. We need to do the same thing at our local government levels. To paraphrase Tom Homan, our new Homeland Security Director, you work for me. You work for me, not the other way around. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other comments?
Steve Johnson, 1536 Snail Road, Enterprise, Kansas. I don't know much about mill levies, but I know my taxes from 1 year ago to now went up 25%. The check I wrote to Dickinson County Treasurer. I don't have a big ownership of land, but I do own a piece of land in Saline County. Taxes were half on that ground. So, and Ron mentioned Department of Defense. I don't know, aren't they the ones that's paying $100 for a claw hammer? You know, we can't pay that kind of stuff. So anyway, just a couple comments I want to make. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Good comments.
We'll let them finish. And anyone else? I know it's not a back and forth, but Ron, if you had a clarification or.
I do want to make just a couple comments, just to talk with you now. I'm not here to fight with you, just to understand things. I own property in Riley County, on property in Pottawatomie County, and Dickinson County. And I'd be more than glad to show you my taxes. I'll guarantee you Dickinson County in that line. Now, Pottawatomie County on a little acreage there, and I bought some of that ground for $400 an acre. And I was just recently offered $5,000 an acre. I haven't been paying much tax on that. I thought that's a pretty good gain. So you guys are looking for the land, guarantee you go buy it now and see what it costs you. If you complain about taxes and they're high, sell out. I guarantee the interest on your land will bring more than you're going to be making. You know what I'm saying? The land is bringing a lot of money. Homes in our community, our little community where I live, are bringing 3 times more than they've been bringing. There's some opportunity there. So, and it goes back to those wages too. That's what it is. So anyway, I just want to bring it up. Sorry.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't want to sell because they want to pass it on to their children, or they choose to live here. But
yeah,
anyway, it's a complicated discussion sometimes, and there's different ways to go. But is there anything else on the compensation plan? Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move on to other business. No additional comments. So now under other business, we have to consider the funding by the core community. And this group was in here last week and made their request. And we have opioid funds that come in on occasion to Dickinson County, but they're very specific on how they can be used. And so, Janelle, would you want to go ahead and give us the background on this request and what this group does and where they do their work?
Commissioners, the group that was in here work in Abilene and in Harrington, and they're focusing on poverty. And they also have a tie back to Recovery Court, which has been a priority for the county commission since it started. They're asking for some funds to help them bring in programs for their group. They have a year-long sometimes 18-month training that they put on. And my recommendation is that we would fund them at $5,000 to be split between the two communities.
I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, we have the motion and I will second that motion that we have $5,000 go to CORE, that's CORE community. And they'll use that between their two places here and also Abilene. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next thing we have is the indigent defense contract. And Janelle, if you would go ahead and cover that, please.
Commissioners, this is a discussion that you've had in the past, and this is the normal time that you would review the contracts and approve the amount. Doug will bring those or provide them, but he's asking that the monthly amount would be $4,350 for the 4 or 5 attorneys that provide that service for you. That's an increase from $3,250 a month. So we ask for your approval on that amount.
And those are, they go ahead and take on those cases on the attorneys, and some, from what I understand, are resolved quickly, or they are able to go through the courts and so on. But if one becomes more complicated, the attorney may spend far more hours than, so that average can vary just a little bit.
Correct.
So that's one of the concerns, is that it's not just a completed quickly at times, but most of the time they're able to resolve things, but it does give defense to the indigent person. I'd go ahead and move that we have this amount be $4,350 for each of those contracts per month.
And I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else to bring before the commission?
No.
I would move that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, if you'll make the motion, I'll give the second. We have the motion and the second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.